Imagine you are sitting at a really crowded dinner party. You look across the room and you see someone holding court. They're laughing, their gestures are confident, they're just exuding this incredible magnetic energy.
Yeah, that real electric kind of presence.
Exactly. And for a split second, you find yourself thinking, wow, who is that? And then, bam, it hits you. That's your partner.
Right.
The exact same person who, I don't know, left their dirty coffee mug on the counter this morning.
Mm.
The person you just spent an hour bickering with about the grocery list.
The roommate, essentially.
Yeah, the roommate. But in that brief moment, you didn't see the roommate. You didn't see your co-parent. You saw a complete stranger.
Yeah.
And strangely enough, that was exactly what made them so wildly attractive to you in that moment.
It's a remarkably universal experience, honestly. Yet it feels like this secret we aren't supposed to admit out loud.
Right, because it goes against everything we're taught.
It really does. I mean, we spend years, sometimes decades, trying to build absolute familiarity with our partners. We want to know everything about them, only to find that the familiarity itself is, well, it can sometimes extinguish the spark entirely. We work so hard to know them, and then we wonder where all the mystery went.
Which brings us to our mission for this deep dive. We are tackling a question today that honestly feels a little dangerous to even ask out loud.
Yeah,
Can we desire what we already have?
it's the million-dollar question.
It really is. So to get to the bottom of this, we've custom-tailored today's deep dive for you, our listener, by exploring a really comprehensive analysis suite based on Esther Perel's groundbreaking book, Mating in Captivity.
And, understanding Perel's background is just essential to grasping how she even approaches this topic.
Yeah, her perspective is so unique.
It is. She brings this incredibly rich cross-cultural lens. So she was raised in Belgium, educated in Israel, and then trained as a psychotherapist in the United States. Plus, she's got over 20 years of clinical practice under her belt.
Wow, that's a lot of varied experience.
Yeah, but the most profound influence on her work, the thing that really shapes her whole philosophy, is actually her family history. Both of her parents were Holocaust survivors.
Oh, wow. I mean, that is such a heavy, just unimaginable trauma to carry into your worldview.
It absolutely alters everything about how you view human existence. But the specific way they emerged from that trauma is what's key here. Because they didn't just, survive the concentration camps, they came out fiercely embracing pleasure.
Really? That's incredible.
Yeah, they viewed pleasure not as some frivolous luxury, but as a fundamental quality of aliveness. It was this act of ultimate defiance against a system that literally tried to destroy them.
Like saying, I'm not just going to survive, I'm going to actually live.
Exactly. So when Perel talks about eroticism in her clinical work, she's never just talking about what happens in the bedroom. She's talking about a life force, a capacity for play, connection, and just pure vitality.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand why so many couples lose that vitality, we kind of have to look at the massive historical shift in what we actually expect from a relationship.
Right, the modern predicament.
Exactly. Modern romance is a completely unprecedented social experiment. I mean, historically, marriage was never supposed to be this all-encompassing emotional utopia.
Not at
It
all.
was highly practical. It was an economic arrangement, a social institution designed to, raise children, combine property, and basically survive harsh winters.
Yeah, passion was something you either found entirely outside the marriage, which was common, or it was just a luxury you learned to live without. The institution of marriage simply wasn't built to sustain a decades-long thrilling romance. It was built for survival and stability.
Right.
But we have largely dismantled all those traditional extended support systems over the last century. We don't really live in multi-generational homes as much. We aren't as embedded in tight-knit community structures or religious institutions.
So we look to our romantic partners to fill every single one of those voids. We are essentially asking one person to be an entire village.
Which is just an impossible burden.
It is. Think about it for a second. Imagine sitting at a table with your partner right now, and between you is this massive, teetering stack of hats.
Oh, I like this analogy.
Right. So you need them to wear the best friend hat, that immediately switch to the financial partner hat, then the reliable co-parent hat, then the therapist hat, and then, after an exhausting day of managing all these logistics, you want them to put on the passionate lover hat.
And just magically turn on the charm.
Exactly. The burden of that is just impossible.
And the hidden tragedy inside that burden is that the very qualities that make someone an exceptional life partner-like, their stability, their predictability, their safety and reliability, those are the exact opposite of the conditions that ignite desire.
Because desire doesn't thrive on safety.
Exactly. Desire feeds on novelty. It feeds on risk, uncertainty, and surprise.
So we build our entire relationships around the pursuit of absolute safety, only to discover that the safety itself is suffocating the passion.
It's the ultimate paradox.
So if that's the case, what actually reignites it? There has to be a mechanism for how desire actually functions if it's not based on comfort.
Well, Perel proposes a thesis that really challenges the bedrock of traditional couples therapy, because the standard therapeutic assumption has always been if you just improve emotional intimacy, good sex will naturally follow.
Like if you communicate more or share your deepest vulnerabilities, the passion will just magically reappear.
Right, but her clinical findings argue the exact opposite. Intimacy and desire actually operate on fundamentally different, almost opposing logics.
How so?
Well, love is about having. It's about closeness, knowing, and familiarity. Love's primary goal is to shrink the distance that exists between you and me.
Okay, well, desire is about wanting. And you obviously can't want something you already have a total grip on.
Precisely. Wanting requires a gap. To explain this, Perel uses this brilliant metaphor of the erotic synapse.
Oh, right, from biology.
Yeah. In biology, a synapse is the physical gap between two nerve endings. For a nerve impulse to travel, for that literal spark to happen, that empty space absolutely must exist. If the nerve endings are touching, nothing happens.
So desire is energized by separateness.
Exact.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Think about it like two magnets.
Okay, go on.
If you have two magnets that are completely stuck together, there's no tension left.
No, at all.
That's the merged couple in modern relationship terms, The couple that finishes each other's sentences, shares every single thought, does every single activity together. They are just a single solid block of domesticity.
The ultimate team, but completely devoid of spark.
Right. So to feel that invisible magnetic pull again, you actually have to pull them apart slightly. You have to introduce a gap so the energy has room to travel.
Because when you eliminate all separateness, you inadvertently kill desire. There is no mystery left. There is no other to want.
And that's got to be a profound realization for couples who feel like they are failing.
It is. They sit in therapy thinking something is fundamentally broken. But the problem often isn't a lack of love. It's a complete lack of separateness.
So how does that invisible magnetic pull get revived in the real world? Because the case studies from Perel's consulting room are fascinating here. Distance was the literal cure.
Let's talk about Adele and Alan.
Yes. So they'd been married for 7 years, highly stable marriage, managing a busy household. But the passion was completely gone.
Completely flatlined.
Yeah, Adele felt like her identity was reduced to just being a mother and a wife. Her sexual self had been stripped away by all the safe, mundane routines they built just to survive their daily lives.
And what's the standard advice everyone gives a couple in that situation?
Oh, schedule a romantic date night, go out to a fancy dinner and stare at each other over a candle.
Right. But that rarely works for couples in this dynamic. They just end up talking about the kids or the mortgage while eating expensive pasta.
Exactly. The turning point for Adele actually happened completely by accident. They were at a work function for Alan. And Adele was standing across the room, kind of just watching him interact with his colleagues.
Like the dinner party example from earlier.
Yes. He was laughing. He was in his element, holding court. And suddenly she saw his smart, sexy vibe that his coworkers saw.
She got out of her own bubble.
Right. She wasn't looking at him as her co-parent or the guy who forgot to run the dishwasher. She was seeing him with fresh eyes as a separate, autonomous person. And that slight psychological distance is what suddenly turned her on again.
It allowed her to see him as an individual, not just an extension of their shared domestic life. But, there's a much more extreme case of this dynamic with a couple named John and Beatrice.
Oh, this one is wild.
It really is. So they deeply loved each other, their communication was excellent, but their sex life was entirely dead. And it all stemmed from John's childhood.
Because he grew up as the primary emotional caretaker for a very lonely mother.
Right. Exactly. So deeply ingrained in his psychology was this association that love equals a burden. To be close to someone means managing their emotional weight.
So the closer he gets to Beatrice, the more burdened he feels.
Right. The intimacy itself is suffocating his physical desire for her. Intimacy felt like an obligation to him, not an invitation.
So what did Perel do?
Her remedy for them was incredibly counterintuitive. She didn't tell them to cuddle more or talk through their feelings endlessly. Beatrice temporarily moved out.
Wait, really? She actually left the house?
Yeah. She got her own apartment, applied for a doctoral program, and started deeply reconnecting with her own independent network of friends.
Wait, hang on. I have to push back on this. For you, the listener, you're probably thinking the exact same thing I am. Everything society tells us is that communication, physical closeness, and sharing every aspect of your life is the ultimate goal of a healthy relationship.
Right, we're taught to merge completely.
So isn't intentionally pushing your partner away and creating that kind of distance incredibly dangerous? Doesn't it risk ending the relationship entirely?
Well, there is a crucial distinction Perel makes here between separateness and abandonment.
Okay, what's the difference?
Abandonment is leaving someone alone in a time of need. It's a withdrawal of care. Separateness, on the other hand, is maintaining your own sovereign identity within a partnership. It is about having a robust interior life.
So you're not leaving them, you're just finding yourself again.
Exactly. And in the case of John and Beatrice, as Beatrice's independence grew, as she became less enmeshed in Zai, John's daily emotional management desire actually began to flow again between them.
Because he didn't feel responsible for her anymore.
Right. By stepping back and building her own life, she recreated the necessary gap. The spark finally had room to jump across the synapse.
It's wild to think that sometimes the best thing you can do for your relationship is to go get your own life.
Absolutely.
But it's not just our domestic routines and our need to be completely enmeshed that kills passion. One of the most provocative ideas in this analysis is what happens when we bring our modern political ideals into the bedroom.
Ah, the egalitarian dilemma.
Yes. Let's talk about that.
Well, in our modern era, we strive for relationships built on perfect equality. We want democracy in our homes. We negotiate, we compromise, we split the chores evenly, we make decisions by committee.
Which, to be clear, makes for a highly functional, respectful partnership. You want things to be fair when you're managing a life together.
Of course. But while democracy is fantastic for a partnership, it can be terrible for passion.
Because eroticism doesn't operate on a democratic model.
No, it doesn't. It often involves power. It involves surrender, dominance, the thrill of being taken or the thrill of taking. These deeply primal dynamics are very hard to access when your primary goal is perfect, balanced equality in every single interaction.
Look at the case of Elizabeth and Vito. Elizabeth is a hyper-responsible school psychologist. All day long, she manages the emotional and physical well-being of hundreds of kids.
A huge mental load.
All massive. And then she comes home and manages the entire household.
Yeah.
She's the absolute epitome of competence and control. But in the bedroom, she seeks out sexual submission with her husband, Vito.
Which some might see as a contradiction.
Right, but for her, that submission isn't a sign of weakness or some betrayal of her feminist values. It's a vacation from responsibility. It's the one place in her entire life where she doesn't have to be in charge.
And that's why we have to separate the politics of sex from the poetics of sex.
That's a great way to frame it.
Yeah, it's an important distinction because the politics of sex must address real damaging abuses of power, inequality, and lack of consent in the real world. That is absolutely non-negotiable.
And we are impartially presenting this. We're not endorsing real-world inequality.
Exactly. But the poetics of sex, the realm of fantasy, role play, and erotic imagination, they often thrive on transgression, on inequality, and on the safe, consensual play of power.
So when couples try to purge all power dynamics from their sexuality to match their daytime egalitarian values, they often unintentionally purge the desire right along with it.
It's like we're terrified that if we let go of control in the dark, we'll lose our hard-won equality in the light.
Wow, that is powerfully said. But if managing a household feels heavy, add kids to the mix. That's where this dynamic really falls off a cliff. The transition to parenthood is notoriously devastating for many couples' sex lives.
Perel explains this through the selflessness versus selfishness paradox.
The mother-lover split.
Right. Because raising children requires absolute selflessness. You are in a constant state of vigilance, caretaking, and putting your own needs last.
Which is exhausting.
It is. But eroticism requires the exact opposite. Eroticism requires a degree of selfishness. It requires the guilt-free ability to focus entirely on your own pleasure and your partner's body without any distraction.
And for many parents, it just feels impossible to switch gears like that. The nurturing, caretaking self feels fundamentally incompatible with the desiring, erotic self.
Yeah, the partner you used to look at with this intense erotic gaze is now the person you look at with a caretaking gaze.
Just wondering if they remembered to buy diapers?
Exactly.
But this raises a really pointed question for you, listening right now. If we need mystery and separateness to keep that erotic gaze alive, does that mean we should be keeping secrets from our partners?
Okay, so Perel draws a very firm, bright line here. Secrecy is destructive.
Good to clarify.
Yeah, secrecy is born out of deception and fear, and it completely destroys trust. But privacy is necessary.
Privacy versus secrecy.
Right. Privacy is about boundaries. It's about maintaining an interior life. You need parts of your mind, your interests, and your thoughts that belong only to you.
Like your fantasies.
Yes, fantasies are just mental exercises in creating desire. You don't have to share every single fantasy you have with your partner. Knowing exactly what your partner is thinking at every single second of the day actually destroys the erotic imagination.
Because if there is zero mystery, there is literally nothing left to wonder about. But that goes completely against the grain of the modern obsession with what Perel calls talk intimacy.
This is a profound critique of Western relationship models. We've somehow decided that the only valid form of intimacy is verbal self-disclosure.
Like, if you aren't sitting across from each other, analyzing your feelings and talking through your childhood traumas, you aren't being intimate.
Which completely marginalizes people who communicate differently. Look at Mitch and Laura from the case studies.
Right, so Laura grew up internalizing these toxic messages that her physical looks equated to sexual danger.
So she views any physical overtures from Mitch as crude, demanding requests.
Yeah, she wants to talk everything to death just to feel safe. But Mitch doesn't operate like that at all. His primary language for tenderness and love is the body. It's touch.
And in a culture that completely privileges talk intimacy, Mitch is constantly at a disadvantage. He's made to feel like his physical language is less evolved or somehow less valid than Laura's verbal language.
So he just ends up feeling constantly rejected.
Exactly. In their therapy sessions, Perel actually had to use physical exercises, forcing them to bypass years of completely unproductive talk therapy. She had to show them how to communicate through presence and touch, shifting their dynamic in a way that words never could.
I mean, this all sounds fascinating, but it goes against so much conventional wisdom. Telling people to create distance, to play with power, to stop talking so much. There must be pushback against this framework.
Well, there absolutely is. It genuinely makes some people uncomfortable because it directly challenges very traditional, comforting models of what a relationship should look like.
Sure, it's provocative.
And on the flip side, some readers find the idea that otherness creates desire to be incredibly intuitive. They don't find it particularly groundbreaking, just something people don't usually say out loud.
Right, and we should note, it is absolutely not a quick fix, step-by-step instruction manual.
No, it's a philosophical reframing. And,
Yeah.
being published in 2006, some of the cultural references can feel a bit dated now.
Right, it's not a simple checklist where you cross off 3 items and suddenly have a passionate marriage. But there is a clear path forward here. How do we actually synthesize this into something actionable for the listener?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it breaks down into a 5-part philosophical shift. Step 1 is just accepting the paradox.
Stop trying to solve the tension between security and desire.
Exactly. Understand that your need for safety and your need for wildness are both entirely valid, but they require different logics. You can't force them into the same box.
And step 2 would be actively cultivating that separateness we talked about, maintaining your psychological distance.
Go do things without your partner. Have your own friends, your own hobbies, which leads right into step 3. Embracing mystery.
Protect your privacy and respect your partner's interior life. Stop demanding to know every single thought in their head.
Step 4 is allowing yourself to play with power consensually. Let the bedroom operate by different rules than your daily democratic life.
And finally, step 5, prioritizing pleasure. Allowing yourself the selfishness required to actually experience eroticism, especially if you're a parent drowning in caretaking responsibilities.
It's all about bringing the wildness of the outside world safely into your domestic life.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? It means the answer to our original question is yes. You can desire what you already have.
But you have to work at it.
Right. You can only do it if you stop trying to shrink the distance between you and your partner to absolute zero. You have to give lust the room it needs to breathe. Think about that massive stack of hats sitting on the table between you and your partner right now. Which ones are crushing the life out of your relationship? Ask yourself where you might have confused a healthy, beautiful intimacy with a closeness that is actually suffocating you both.
And this leaves us with a lingering question, something for you to ponder long after we finish today.
Let's hear it.
If desire absolutely requires a gap to survive, and if mystery requires things to be left unsaid, how much is our modern digital age systematically destroying our erotic intelligence?
Oh, that's a great point.
Think about it. We track our partner's exact location on GPS. We text them every mundane thought that pops into our heads all day long. and we follow their every move on social media.
In our quest to be constantly connected, we might have engineered a world that leaves absolutely no room for the erotic imagination.
We've completely eliminated the synapse.
We've glued the magnets together with smartphones.
Wow.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Now, do yourselves a favor. Go put your phone on airplane mode and create some distance.